Joining us now is the former manager of the Cardinals, the soon-to-be Hall of Fame manager. He's Tony La Russa. The book is One Last Strike, joining us in the man cave. What do you think of this, Skip, if you had this in the locker room?
Incredible. I mean, this is really impressive. I wish everybody could see it. It's very creative.
Yeah, well, the best clubhouse you ever went in that would be close to this would be what?
Well, Wrigley Field is this old, but it's not nearly as nice.
But you don't have any memorabilia, though. You didn't put anything in there. We got the golf simulator. You got
like
the
my
basketball.
Clubhouse?
Yeah.
Probably Old Bush.
Yeah.
You know, I was there, 10 years, and ended up with a lot of stuff on the walls. And I like books, so I had bookcases all over the place.
Coolest piece of memorabilia you have?
I like stuff that's personal. And I think probably, I could just, one that comes to mind, the first 3 AllStar games that I managed, I got a game ball, and we won them. So I got the winning pitcher, the MVP, and the closer. So, like, one was Nolan Ryan, one was Cal Ripken was the MVP, X saves it. I mean, that's kind of typical, but the one that comes to mind now, which is kind of a neat memory because of some of the stuff that went on with the All-Star selections with Cincinnati. I did pick Jay Bruce over Matt Holliday, which upset the Cardinal fans. The last out of the All-Star game was a fly ball to Jay, and he handed me the game ball. So I've got the game ball handed me by a Cincinnati Red, which is pretty, I thought, ironic.
But how bad did it get? I knew Cincinnati's side of it, and Dusty Baker, everybody was taking it personally there. And you couldn't appease everybody. How much heat did you get from Cardinal fans when you left Holliday off the All-Star roster?
Well, I had more points with the Cardinal fans, but they were not happy. I mean, they thought, why would you do that? You're our guy. And I thought, well, you're supposed to be neutral, and you picked the best squad you can, which is why I was upset with the Reds manager, because he'd done that before. And you're always going to have some very difficult choices. And a lot of it now, by the way, Dan, in the old days, you picked everybody but the starters. Now they give you 2 squads plus 8 pitchers, 5 pitchers. No, 8 pitchers with the 3 relievers. So you only have a few picks, so it was very unfair.
But when I talked to you, you were hurt. That was a personal attack there with Dusty Baker.
Yeah.
Have you talked to Dusty? And obviously with his health issues, have you talked to him?
I left him a message. I haven't talked to him. I told him how upset I was that you can disagree all you want to. We all disagree all the time. But make it personal, that's not acceptable. The
book is One Last Strike. Tony La Russa joining us here in the Man Cave. When you look at writing a book, and it's sort of a bloodletting, like what's in and what's out, what's off limits. What did you really struggle over to put in the book or leave out of the book?
I think even, there are some issues that we touch on that if you really wanted to start scratching and pull up the scabs, it would have made the kind of book that I wouldn't want to be a part of. I didn't want to walk around any place and want to avoid anybody or be embarrassed. I think there's a way to explain everything that happened in my career there that is straightforward, and even where there were disagreements, I could understand why they were disagreeing, and as long as nobody doubted, you do the best that you can. See, the difference here, Dan, was that, like 3 nights in August with Buzz, I just talked to him. He's really a great writer, and he pulled it all together, told the story. I didn't have anything to do with it other than just talking ball. This one here, HarperCollins, they really wanted my perspective, and then they wanted the history of where some of the stuff came from. So it's a nice story it's a great story about these guys, and it tells a lot about the mentors.
Now, I know you love the game, the history of the game, but the role that performance-enhancing drugs will play on this game. When 50 years from now, 100 years from now, are we still focusing on this era, this time frame of 80s, 90s, even 2000s?
I was right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So I really believe that there hasn't been a real good analysis, a fair analysis. For example, for a while, exercises, weight training, taboo in baseball. And then it started. In fact, our coach, Dave McKay, was one of the first guys, and to this day is one of the best authorities who's had a uniform on. Well, when you started getting into it, there was one substance that's still legal, which is creatine. Creatine was the first powder that was used, and all of a sudden the workouts were enhanced in the sense that you got more out of them. And for a long time, that was what a lot of us believed what was happening. As it turned out, it was a dehydrating kind of substance, so you got off it because you were pulling muscles. And see, I don't think that whole progression of where it started, the effect of creatine, and how once guys started getting into the PEDs, where that overtook creatine. But at some point, we were all aware that there was something going on, and it's how you rectified history historically. For smarter the guys than me, I don't know.
What if we put the onus on management? If you bring in somebody who's a user, like Melky Cabrera gets popped, what if you punish them with draft picks, or there was something there that you had to do your homework to say, if we're buying somebody, if I hire somebody, I have to know their background. Why shouldn't we do that to management in Major League Baseball, the ownership?
All right, I have no problem with that as long as you take both sides of it. There are two parties to a player. There's the club and the industry that hires them. There's also the group that protects them. And for a long time we got into this. The union was really an obstacle because they would scream collective bargaining, right of privacy. So as long as you hold both accountable, I have no problem with that.
The label genius. Did you hate it, like it, embrace it?
No, embarrassing. It's. I remember the first time it came up was probably the George Will book. And, he picked me as a manager because I was young and he wanted somebody to be around for a while. He could have gone with the veterans. And that's why he explained. So all of a sudden the thing comes out, and it was, we were playing really well at the time. And it becomes an embarrassment because, the same guy that finishes first is supposed to be so smart.
Yep.
Finishes last the next year. It's a player's game. There's not really a lot of difference between head coaches and managers. I mean, you got some guys that do it really well and other guys do it well.
But can you outmanage somebody on a consistent basis?
Consistently, no. Players. You know what you can do, I think, Dan? I think that your difference or the edge that you can pick up as a leader and a staff, whether it's your coaches and you, would be in how you get a guy ready to compete consistently, with no lapses. And then once you got their attention, you give them an edge in how they play the game. So it comes to effort and execution. I think that's where coaches make a difference. As far as the strategies during the game, the other guy knows what's going on.
Why did you bring Mark McGwire back as a hitting coach?
Well, and I didn't take it seriously as an insult, but I kept hearing I did it to rehabilitate him, to do a friend a favor. Yeah. And so if you look at that, that's an insult. When you're a major league manager, the organization has entrusted you with the responsibility for their team. I have a lot of friends I don't invite to be a coach. What I saw with Mark, I saw him his rookie year. Really talented, had this wonderful timing swing, just clicked it, swing easy, hit hard. But he was absolutely clueless about hitting. In fact, he would tell you, no, Dan Patrick, man, you're 1 for 20 against you. He always does it. No, I don't want to get confused. Well, later in his career, he got brilliant. I mean, and a lot of it had during his injuries, he was able to observe the game between pitcher, catcher, and hitter. He knew his stroke. Sparky would always say, "You can't hit with that little tilt and the knock knees." So he's a golfer. He did this so he had better rotation, changed his bat, and as he got deeper in his career, he really was smart about his stroke, the game between pitcher and hitter, and the powers of concentration. So I thought, man, you got something to offer. And I would invite him to come in when he retired just to work with the kids. And here's the final piece. I would talk to his wife, Steffi, and she would tell me about his passion. Now, they live in California. 4 o'clock, he would sit in front of a TV and watch the East Coast game. Then they'd have dinner. And while they were having dinner, he'd watch the West Coast. He'd watch a doubleheader a day. And once in a while, I'd talk to him. He'd tell me, Dan Patrick, man, he's not leading with his hands, or he's not getting through them. I want. So I put together knowledge, passion, and right there at the end, I said, Mark, I don't have much longer, man, and you ought to coach, and I'm offering you a chance. And with the blessing of his wife and his boys, he did it. And a couple of months later, they have triplets. So now they got 5 kids.
Think he'll ever get in the Hall of Fame?
I think it's one of my pet peeves. there shouldn't be poster boys for who doesn't get in. Like right now, it's Barry, Roger, and Mark. I mean, either they all get in or none of them get in. But why pick and choose?
Would you put them all in?
I probably would make some kind of reference to the era and the fact that it was enhanced. But yeah, I would. I mean, there were too many guys, pitchers and hitters.
Yeah.
I mean, where do you stop and how do you exclude them all? I wouldn't.
If you could have done something different with Albert Pujols, could you have kept him in St. Louis?
It's a good question, Dan. It's academic because I couldn't stay there. My time was up, you know.
Had you stayed?
Had I stayed, I do believe that there was an accommodation that maybe I could have convinced ownership was smart, and maybe I could have convinced Albert was smart. It'd have been something where they both would have had to accommodate. And do I think, I mean, I'm very close to both of them. I would think I would have a shot. You know, something, a lot of money for 5 years, not 10 years. And maybe. And I wish, that's probably the only regret, because I wish Albert could have stayed. But I've said many times, you know, I would not blame Albert. I would not blame the Cardinals. I blame the system.
Davey Johnson, as opposed to Mike Rizzo, Steven Strasburg, a manager, the feel that he has. You went through this with Chris Carpenter. You know, I want a guy in there. What if management had said, or Walt Jocketty had said, hey, I don't want him to be in there, or his agent had said something like that? Is, you know, that delicate balance in D.C. with Davey Johnson, Strasburg, his agent, Boris, now you got Rizzo. What would you have done with Strasburg if you were managing?
Well, I'll tell you the answer that I really believe the most, and then I'll hedge it a little bit. I really believe that an organization knows and cares about getting information so that they have some kind of informed knowledge about their player, more than any of us that kind of figure from away from an intimate knowledge of the situation. So they have everything at stake. They have the doctor's opinions. They have their own beliefs. They have a talented, you know, Mike is a talented general manager. Davey's done another great job managing. So I would trust them. And, you know, they're going to get in the playoffs. They are in the playoffs. Wish them well. The hedge that I think the only natural hedge that you could figure was if you figured 160 innings, maybe you back off somewhere June or July and save some for later. But that probably has its own pitfalls. That's the only thing that I would, if I was in the decision-making process, say, well, is there another way to save innings now so he can pitch later? And there probably was an answer that says no.
Before I let you go, the question that's always been there for me to ask, why do managers wear uniforms? You know,
I was, you know, our foundation, for a while we had this business club and we had people come in to speak. And John Madden came in. And he made a big, fun, you know, brilliant piece there on, first of all, why you get called skipper instead of coach, you know.
Yeah.
You know, this is not a boat, it's a team. And then he went into this thing about wearing uniforms versus anybody else. And he actually got me on the stage. I was over there listening. And my only answer is the one that Paul Richards gave me in 1978 or 9. He says, it's the only, maybe this is not true, it's the only sport where the coach goes on the field. So you do make changes. When you make bullpen changes, you sometimes you can go out and argue a play. That's the only possible explanation, that you sometimes participate on the field. Everybody else is on the sidelines.
Yeah, but some grown men should not be in uniform.
Yeah, I mean, I don't dispute it. I don't dispute it. And I'm not. And I would have been 100% comfortable being on the sidelines with a pair of jeans and walking out of the field making a pitching change. But that's the only thing that makes sense that I heard Paul Richards say, and that's what I offer you. The book is One Last Strike. Tony La Russa joining us in studio. Tony, good to visit with you.